Hello and welcome to No Man's Land. My name is Avitus, and I'm here with Dark Leftovers and Razor. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys?
Hello, Dark Leftovers.
Oh, I don't know. I was
Is that me,
expecting
sorry?
more from you there. I must say, I was expecting more from you.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some conversations about Foxhole and some criticism of the game, always constructive, of course, and some ways that we think the game can be improved. Um, just some general talk about Foxhole. So, do you want to start talking about Garrison and city size, guys? Garrison buildings and city size. So, something that I've always thought in Foxhole, and I've put this point across many times, is I always believe that the towns in Foxhole are a little bit too small. Um, Especially the bigger cities like the capital, Abandoned Ward, is always, in my belief, should have been absolutely massive compared to what it is now. And I know that things might be added in the future to Abandoned Ward, but I think the way that it's been placed on the map, it's not going to have much chance to be as big as I think it should be. Um, any thoughts on that, guys?
Well, some things I've been probably thinking is that everything is kind of temporary. I mean, they could obviously like add on to it. Like they could extend, make Abandoned Ward a little bit more of a bigger, making it a little bigger and work around from the river. As of it's currently right now, it's kind of it's kind of hard to see any type of growth as far as trying to like if they want to like add or extend anything there. Sure, there's like some extra dead space, but it's not really going to capitalize that feeling of what Abandoned Ward is supposed to be. It's always left off the feeling this is supposed to be like an abandoned town, or like the center of Deadlands is always Abandoned Ward, and it just currently just feels like it's just like not even like it's just barren and empty. Like not even there's like barely a couple of structures there.
Now, here's a question for you. Do you know what Abandoned Ward's real name is? Before it was obviously abandoned.
What was it?
Sun's Haven.
That's
Sunset.
Makes sense, doesn't it? But yeah, I think an idea that I've put across in the past is Abandoned Ward or a large city having an entire map dedicated to just urban conflict. So you have maybe a few parks in this city where you can set up FOBs and some defenses, but most of the map is unbuildable apart from things like sandbags and tank traps and stuff like that. And I think that would go a long way to having a different experience on Foxhole. Now, I understand that would be hard to implement now, but I think maybe a skirmish map, you know, taking Abandoned Ward or Sun's Haven in its like another version of the city, maybe in the past or something like that, where it was more complete, or an entirely different city completely. Because I would really like to see some really big urban conflict where you feel like you're really pushing through the districts of a city and not just a small town. I mean, Abandoned Ward's the biggest town we've got on the map, and it's in truth it's not really that big. I mean, you can run from one end to the other in like less than 2 minutes, so it's just. I mean, I want something where it takes time to clear streets and go house to house and things like that. I know it would bring its own style to the game, but it's something that I would really like to see in the future.
I could see it being as like a skirmish map, like where like
Yeah,
the main capital or like the victory town will be in the dead center, and that's where the objective is. Is who can hold the center the longest and until the skirmish wins. And skirmish maps in their current size, to me, it would be probably perfect for entire urban warfare focused map.
yeah, and I think uh, placing things like sandbags and stuff like that, and that map would be an ideal, in my opinion, an ideal map for competitive gameplay. So it would test not people's like ability to mass build defenses, but our actually ability to engage infantry on a level playing field in like a street or a house or something like that. And then it really comes down more to positioning, tactics, and squad leaders putting the men in particular buildings and things like that. So I think it would be a great idea for a map for competitive gameplay. Any thoughts on that, Razor?
Well, you remember we discussed this in the past, especially you and me, about how excited I would be, especially about the aspect of having like a small squad, going from room to room in a building, for example, and cleaning it out. Like the communication and basically working as a team to actually go through bigger structures than the garrison houses we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember now that we were talking about building interiors, and at the moment we've got, I think, the bog standard garrison house and a couple of other buildings that we can go in, like barns and stuff like that. But the barns don't really offer that much of a interest in it. They're just flat inside. There's nothing really going on inside a barn. But we were discussing before, if we had a really huge building, or perhaps an old bunker system or something like that from previous wars or something like that, that we could actually go in, and it's a choke point where people will be fighting inside this complex and fighting inside these buildings. What we were talking about before is like enterable town halls. Enterable town halls would be like like really cool in my opinion. I know town halls have no defenses of their own, but I always thought it would be a really good idea for people to be able to go inside and man the windows as a last stand sort of thing.
Absolutely, like a machine gun position, for example, on one of the windows.
Level 3 town halls could have better positions and things like that.
They would at first have to make the town halls a little bit bigger, and especially how like a T1 town hall, like, does it even have any windows? Like the current model, like it's just a tent over it at the moment, right?
Yeah.
But I could see it more as like, I can agree. And when it's T1, it's you can still go inside it, but I mean, you're able to put tent windows, right?
I was more referring to so like the tent could be just a really bog standard, like sort of a barracks, where you can go inside the barracks and you can still loot the barracks from inside the tent itself. What I'm talking about is like a level 1 town hall would be something really basic, not really any defenses.
Not meant.
There. Yeah. But as you upgrade the town hall, perhaps it's enterable at level 2. And level 3, you've also you've got
the high
windows.
Ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, on the roof you may have access on the roof. For example, for a tier 3, I would see that like something cool. Like having it accessible so you can basically place some either a machine gun or I don't know, your best guy who he can basically snipe enemies from there.
I get the point. I see what you're trying to say with that, and I do agree with that. And that would be something that gives the game more of a feeling of like, this is our last stand, guys. We're not dying, we're not leaving until they actually destroy the town hall.
Yeah. So, anything else on that, guys, or can we move on to the new shooting system?
One thing I would say, I don't know if this might be a little segue, but you mentioned about it would be perfect for urban combat, or not perfect for competitive play. And have you seen the new map for FCL?
I haven't, not yet. I haven't taken a look at that yet.
I will post it in the chat right now, and Razor can clip this in.
I'll be sure to add it to the actual video of the stream.
Interesting. I'm just looking at it now. It's real interesting map. I think it could offer a lot of new styles of gameplay.
Now,
it seems
one thing I would say that it to me kind of fucks over some things, and this is just me, but remember when we had a little skirmish one time just against fellow people, and they built up the radio tower, and Even so,
Yeah.
it is a pain early game. Or you remember, like FCL is mainly like what 1 to 2 hours to like who can hold the most victory points wins.
Yeah, I think yeah. Now you've brought that up, that's a good point. The radio towers, they need to be like a later game thing, because at the moment, what happens on skirmish maps, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare on FCL, is getting these. If the enemy team manages to rush a radio tower and get it up early game, there's not a great deal you can do about it with what you have early game. So there's been many times where we have came across a radio tower that's been constructed by the enemy very early game, and it's so detrimental to your team that it can, that having that early game radio tower can completely change the outcome of the battle, because they're so hard to destroy early game. You literally need at least 10 people shooting them with rifles for about 10 minutes before you can even, think about destroying it. I think it's something ridiculous, like 200 rifle clips to destroy one of them, and that's going to be really detrimental in FCL. And I don't really think they should include the radio towers. I suppose you could argue that it is a tactic to rush the radio towers early game, but the reward for that is such a blow to the enemy team that it's just, for an advantage to be gained such early game, it's a real big one, and I think it could affect fairness and things like that throughout from the medium to the long game.
What I would like to add on the discussion of this map, I didn't look into it too much myself, but looking at it like at the first glance at least, especially with like FCL being more concentrated on small groups of people basically fighting each other, it just looks like huge to me. I don't know, maybe it's just
let me clarify some things. They did change some rules for how the current season is. I think it's not just like how it was, or like 20 people versus 20 people. It's more like teams of multiple, it's like 3 clans merged into one team. And like
right.
it was more, they made it more bigger, so that way, because like for this, like it's too big for what they previously had. And
yeah, I mean, I understand Razor's point though. The map is huge, but if that's what you're saying, there's more people involved, then, but that's just going to turn into another slog. I mean, if they have the exactly same rules as like a normal conquest, then what's to stop one team from massing defenses? I mean, I know the old FCL, it was practically whoever captured the middle town first won. There was very, very few games where people managed to counterattack and actually take it back, because once one team had a foothold, they just mass built defenses, and there's very, very little you can do about it with the time that you have to increase the tech tree in an FCL match. I know it was like you were having like 10 minutes left once as soon as you got mortars. It was like 10 minutes. You had to get the mortars built, get them supplied to your men, and then assault the town, rebuild the town. So you were like playing for a draw most of the time.
I would personally like when you talk about competitive Foxhole in my head, I think the logi aspect should be a little more. I don't know. Not as much given attention as the combat aspect. That's just me. So I would like to see less concentration on who can basically do logi better or supply their small team, and more concentrated on the actual combat. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
even give both teams like a certain amount of supplies, and then well, that's it. Like it should be part of your skill to be able to manage those in a way that you can ensure a victory for yourself.
Yeah. So that's actually a good segue onto one of our other talking points. Problems with logistics in the current setting of the game. So I know that logistics has gone through a lot of changes, and they've added things into logistics. to improve it, like the mines that have recently came out and things like that. And I know that they've just overhauled the entire UI and how you do things in logistics. I'm more of an armor and an infantry player, so I've never really looked a great deal into logistics. But some of my friends who are full-time logistics players have noted quite frequently to me how what's the best word to say? Logistics has a lot of problems, and it has had a lot of problems for a long time. And the problems don't seem to be getting addressed as much as the logistics players had hoped. So I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit more about logistics. I'm not really that versed in what's going on with that. Reza, you got anything to say about logistics?
Well, in my opinion, the new system brought a lot of excitement, but the real changes, the real benefits in the changes, I don't think they're gonna hit until we see. I don't know if you guys are aware, they're planning to change how the queues work. So, for example, if Dark would queue up some shirts, you have Vitus being in the same squad as him, you're gonna be able to pick them up. So he doesn't have to come back himself to the facility to pick them up. I think that's a first very important step in the right way.
Absolutely.
Because you mentioned mines, right? Like, if I'm gonna be honest, I always do logistics if I need to, and I had my run with logistics in the past when I basically ran it for a few months. I feel like mines are like, I try to steer away from them because like they basically impose you to another queue. It's like you need to go back there and pick up after 5 minutes, and it takes from your liberty. Like a logistics, you need to have basically let's call it, I don't know how to exactly name it, like
like rounds.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Yes. Thank you. Like you need to have a path in mind how you want to do it and repeat it. And
so when you start your logistics, obviously you go and mine scrap. You put that scrap into the refinery, and then you can build the bayonets that one of the squad leaders has requested at the front line, for instance.
It's even like what you get from scrapping, you'd get way more from the mines. And like even like it's like 5 minutes for for a full stack, right?
So
Something like that,
it's 5 minutes, and you get 2 stacks of scrap. But a scrapyard gives you like what now? More than 3, if I'm not mistaken, because I know they supplemented.
I mean, even if it doesn't, I think it's more important. Like when you're a logistics, sometimes I know that especially when you're playing with a clan and a group of organized players, logistics are always under a lot of strain and pressure to get supplies to the front line quickly, rather than massing a lot and then dropping them all off at once. Sometimes things are needed at the front line right there and then, not in 20 minutes time, sort of thing. And I think that's where mines fall off. Mines are, I could see mines being of use to logistics, but rather than replacing entire scrap fields and taking scrap fields away from towns completely, one mine and one scrap field might have worked a little bit better for logistics, just to make it easier for them to produce scrap. Because like you said, another queue on top of everything else is a little bit much. But I know that you get a lot more scrap from the mines if you're prepared to wait the time. But the people at the front line sometimes don't have, an extra 3 minutes to wait for scrap to farm.
And I agree with you perfectly on the point that if we had the scrap field next to a mine, that would have worked excellent. But the problem is, and I know a lot of logistics, like hardcore logistics players do this, they generally have a clock or multiple clocks somewhere on their screen, and they basically keep track of their queues. They know when the shirts are going to finish, they know when the rifles are going to finish, so they can be as effective and efficient as possible into picking those orders up. When you add the mine queues to it, it's just like most of the time, you put too much strain on yourself to.
So that's I'll just stop you there. That's an absolutely excellent idea, actually. If that is the case, and people are getting clocks themselves and putting them on the screen to keep track of their orders and stuff like that. Perhaps queue times that your own supplies for your squad can come up in like a small window, or perhaps when you open your map, you can see the timers on the map, or at the factories that you've placed them at, for instance, so you can see when they're ready to pick up.
My opinion on that would be that logistics player would actually see that as a real, life improvement, if you want, because like that's gonna make their life so much easier, other than having to track it themselves through other websites, or just power of keeping them in their mind, basically just tracking a clock, so to say.
I think. Sorry, go on, Doc.
Oh, I was just gonna say on the point with like giving logistics their own like unique equipment that's literally only for them, and like that would be something that would be really just cool to have, like something kind of similar to like I'm thinking more of it more being like a radio, but this is just mainly for logistics and just to know like your queue timers. Unless you guys are talking about more of a like what's it called, general life improvement, like what they did with the mini map and the compass.
Yeah. I mean, it could work either way. I mean, it could be cool to include an actual item, a piece of equipment that you need to make logic easier, the same way as, having a grenade launcher as a rifleman, or, a sidearm as a tank commander. It's just like a piece of equipment that makes your specific role in Foxhole easier. Like, I know they have the sledgehammer, but that's all they've had for quite some time. So I think an item that actually gives them logistics timers would be pretty cool. But at the same time, I wouldn't argue if it was put in as a quality of life thing. I think if we're honest about the main problem with logistics is it's boring. There's no two ways about it. The reason that like a lot of people like logging onto Foxhole, I would say 95% of the community, is to shoot the enemy. So obviously, when you're scrapping, I've known people scrap for 3 hours just because they had to, just because the
Or force.
Yeah, oh yeah, at gunpoint. But the like bigger clans, obviously they need that big source of income, so we need constant people farming, and it's sad to say it's necessary, but it's a hell of a boring thing to put someone on. It does feel a little bit guilty assigning someone to do that. So what I'd like to see is like anything that they can give to logistics to make it easier for them. Give them something, like give them purpose, something behind their role, like you said, like that timer, or another form of equipment, or something like that. And something that we can segue onto now, which is also what could be something great for logistics and every role in the game, and something that I wanted to talk about for quite some time: customization. Now, I know it's a bit of a controversial topic, and they've said plenty of times that they want to add other things into the game before customization. But I think the value of bringing new players into the game and retaining players cannot be understated with customization and earnable rewards through customization. So what I'm suggesting wouldn't be something that is huge, or would change things drastically. Things like hats or something like that.
Different
earnable hats.
uniforms.
Yes.
So I feel like, I mean, it's like, it's even in wars, go World War I to II, like there were different uniforms, and even just simply for different infantry to the officer, like you can distinguish who's who. Here in Foxhole, someone that doesn't have a weapon, you're like, well, fuck, are they a medic, or do they have a grenade, or like what the fuck are they doing? Like you don't really know most of the time. And I feel like just it's like it goes a long way if all they was just you could change your uniform to like even two, because everyone's tired of the same look. people want to look different. Sometimes when people like get the radio backpack is because they want to look unique. They just want to.
That's most of the reason I get it. Yeah, just to add a little bit of difference to you. So things like I don't think it would be a big ask and a lot of work, to be honest with you, or a lot of effort to implement. Just things like so say for instance, once you reach commissioned officer rank, like past sergeant sort of thing, you maybe get a cap or something to wear, and once you pass captain, then perhaps you get one with a different badge on it or something like that. Yeah, and then you can have specific uniforms for roles. So, and they don't have to differ very much from the bog standard uniform. Just something like a medic band on your arm, or something like that if you like playing medic a lot. Logistics could have, I don't know, maybe they could have just like they would maybe have a different uniform altogether. Like
I saw that underneath the model of the warden model, like if you were to undress them, they have like a black tank top on, and I'm just thinking like they could just unbutton the top half of their coat, and just have it tied around their waist, and they're just chilling with these.
Absolutely, that's an excellent idea. And that could cover combat pioneers as well. Combat pioneers meaning people building defenses, for people who don't know. Engineers and the like. They could also work for tank crewmen as well. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't take a lot in my opinion, and it would boost people's if they could earn things like hats and things like that, then I think it would give people a goal to head towards within the game. Now I'm not a fan at all of progression trees that in games that like where you have to unlock weapons, for instance. I think that's vastly unfair to new people joining the game and things like that. But I think if we had a purely customization based progression tree, I think it would add a lot of things to the game. Now I know a lot of people have talked about vehicle customization and things like that, but I know that vehicle customization would be a hell of a lot harder to implement than uniform customization and small changes to uniform on your soldiers specifically. But I mean, vehicle customization, I feel, is something that needs to come into the game eventually, because and at the very minimum, it should be logistics first again, because those guys go through a lot. So, maybe giving them something cool to unlock or ride around in. For instance, a logistics truck could just be changed where a tank or a fuel truck or something like that. It doesn't need to just specifically store fuel, but it could just be another skin for the logistics trucks to wear to say, look, I am a veteran logistics driver or something like that.
I heard this idea. I am not sure who brought it up, but I'm just gonna pop it up here because I feel it's relevant. Like somebody was suggesting the truck would have its back uncovered, basically have the
like a flatbed.
Exactly. Just
yeah.
And you can, like you said, you can do it situation
with maybe some pallets of B mats
or
pallets
fuel,
of R mats.
Yeah,
something
fuel,
like that.
some
Yeah,
barrels in the back.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea again. It's just like a little bit of variation would go a long way. In the, I know that we've got specific trucks for wardens and colonials now that we're very, very grateful for. But I think a little bit of variation of vehicles, I'm sure it will come in time, and I would like to see uniform customization coming a lot sooner than vehicle customization, in my opinion. But I think it's something that needs to come in eventually. Anything else to say on that, guys? Or can we move on to another infamous vehicle that's gone under a lot of discussion recently in 82 DK?
I could probably agree with the next current topic is going, but as far as for customizing, and like something that I feel like if and I hope they do when they want to integrate, clans actually into the game, where you can actually make a clan in the game,
yeah,
is like just make able to spray and put a logo on the damn truck and just seeing like this truck belongs to this clan, and and whenever No, you can go. You can go.
Yeah, I think that would probably come in with the customization of the vehicle. They would probably release something like that with vehicle customization as a whole, I would imagine, and that would maybe come a little bit later. But they might not introduce that at all, just for the pure fact that I know a lot of the clans on Foxhole would be responsible with it, but there's always that a group of 5 people that form a clan and then put a dick on the side of a lorry or something like that. So I think that's probably why they would segue away from that one.
What could I add to that would be a bit is like not necessarily let us upload our own stuff, so to say, but at least have some already made templates of like your regiments, maybe instead of having everything exactly the same. The squads, because we have Yankee, we have maybe at least have the call sign of the squad on the vehicle. Just
yeah,
that would be good. That would be good for a start, and I feel like keep in mind, all this pretty much ties down, and I might be talking about this more in detail later, is about how they want to really go about integrating the clans actually into their game, because it could go to by like you have to have a member limit, if you get enough people in.
I tell you what, let's go on to that now, and then we can go on to the vehicle that I wanted to talk about after that.
It's like, oh, dude, you've unleashed the beast with this, because because keep in mind, these are just all my suggestions I was thinking about to making clans feel like they're more useful. And this is just something I want to talk about. Like, I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but think about the current tech tree as it is right now. Okay, and think they've added a system where you have your own clan. You're still, it's in the game. You've joined it in the game, and your clan has their own tech tree that's pretty much a carbon copy of the same, but everything is about reduced more to an accessible length, if you get what I mean. And whatever you put in on your own clans contributes to the main one. So you as a clan, you could already get everything you wanted to focus on. And like, say for example, it takes 50 tech to get a fucking medkit, okay? And the whole faction is like at 200. As soon as you put your 50 in the whole faction, there's already 50 in there. Like what the clan puts in, it also contributes to the main goal. Sure that the clans, they get their own advanced, they unlocked it more, and they can, only those members can produce, these medkits until the rest of the faction can catch up. But I would feel like that would help the clans feel more significant in that state.
I mean, I think it would be. I think that's a great idea, but I think a lot of people would argue that against it for unfair advantage for clans, and a lot of people would say, don't clans have enough advantage already? And those people obviously don't know what it takes to organize large scale assaults and stuff like that. But I get what you're saying, and I think it's a great idea as a clan member. But I can see the devs now saying that that will never be implemented, just for the pure fact that it would give an unfair advantage to clans. In my opinion, it would be. See, the thing is, it would be a great idea for medkits and things like that, for maybe the baseline tech tree, like the early game. I could see that working, but as you sort of get late game, it gets a little bit like, I don't know, like for instance, smaller clans would feel left out a little bit and things like that. You know what I mean? And it would give massive advantages to huge clans, because huge clans would be able to just rack up the tech tree and get a tank by day 3.
And then you'd have the problem of, like let's say a big clan unlocks medical supplies, then they can just mass it for the entire faction. They're not forced in any way to keep them for their clan, right? So then the entire faction gets to benefit out of one clan's action, and you can, like, from here you can go on having multiple clans focusing on different things and having access to them without actually unlocking them on the main tree, if you know what I mean, Dark. So it's a bit complicated. It would ask of everybody to us, like, only use what they actually unlocked, I think it's a big a big thing to ask. People would
mean,
I think
share them.
I think what could work and be quite successful is something like what you talked about with a clan reward system. I think it could work. It would just not work specifically like unlocking things. I think it could work where maybe you, if you have so many people in the clan and they've contributed, I don't know, maybe they can put in, maybe logistics can put in 10,000 scrap into a certain building, and that will produce one tank. Early game war, like maybe you get a tank at day 3, but you get a single tank, and it's taken a lot of organization to get the vehicle early war, and I think that could add a really cool dynamic and things like that to the war. And it would be obviously early game tanks, day 3 tanks. They're not unkillable; they're just very, very hard to kill. And if these tanks could only be produced on a set timer of 24 hours, say for instance, then a single clan could only push out one tank, but that tank could lead an entire assault into the enemy lines, which I think would be a really cool addition.
What about if there was and try not to get too within the fantasy of this idea, but like the bigger the clan you are, the more the tech costs for, eventually it gets to a point where it's basically the same, and like now you're just dealing with your own, the tech trees are equally the same. But like, say if you're a small clan, it gets to like, it like no matter what, how bigger you get, the amount it takes will always be somewhat balanced,
I mean, I could see them, but like it would be a system that would need to be talked about thoroughly by the devs,
yeah.
and balanced out and stuff like that. But I really think that it could work if the right systems were implemented. I think it could really throw a spanner in the works for early game war, which is, early game war, in my opinion, is some of the best fighting during the war. But I think if you add throw something in really late game, like a tank, for instance, into a huge battle of early game war, and it could change the battle around. If multiple clans organise their cooldowns for these vehicles, then huge offensives can be started and things like that early game. And that brings us on to another vehicle that I wanted to talk about.
The
vehicle, and one that I would like to say that I don't hate, but it's come under a lot of talk in the 82DK. A lot of people have been discussing it. The armored car. Now, and the armored car, early game, and when it is first unlocked on the tech tree, is useful to a certain degree. Like people tend to build armored cars as soon as they come out because it's the first vehicle with any meaningful sort of firepower on it. So it has a storm rifle on the top of it.
Storm rifle.
But the storm rifle's great for taking out like level 1 defenses.
What's the main issue of the storm rifle?
It's inaccuracy. Couple that with the absolutely abysmal engine fitted into the thing, and it was put across as an escort vehicle for Logi, which I thought at the time was an absolutely brilliant idea, and I still do. The problem is that what it was marketed as isn't what it is, and there's a very specific reason for that. You're driving down a road, Umber Wildwood, something like that. You're having trouble with partisans in the area, so you send an armoured car to escort a Logi truck through with a valuable shipment of artillery shells that are badly needed at the front line. So you send an armoured car to make sure that the Logi truck gets through. Now, the artillery shells are needed at the front line now.
I know.
Now, not in 10 minutes, now. You know what I mean? And the logistics are getting yelled at to get these artillery shells to the front line, and they have to wait for this armoured car to crawl down the road and secure the road in front of them. Now, the armored car, I get that the armored car is not intended for off-road, and I agree with its penalty.
Principle there.
Yeah, penalty. But I agree with the principle of a penalty for off-road, because it's not. It's intended to defend lodgy lanes, not pursue partisans, because it kind of ruin the partisan game if armored cars were just able to, drive across fields and
hell,
catch
partisans would bring their own armored cars to
there.
It's like
exactly. It would make it worse. It would make it worse. So the problem is that the armored car is not just a little bit slower than the logistics trucks. It's quite considerably slower than the logistics trucks. And in my opinion, it needs to be at least the ideal speed for an armored car on the road is the speed of a truck. And I know that's a little bit fast, but for it to do its intended role, that's where it needs to be. Otherwise, it's just. I mean, I've seen armored cars in 20 different maneuvers, and the only time that they are effective outside of their marketed role is under absolutely huge protection from a large group of infantry, and even then they're used a very weak support vehicle for maybe entering a town that's got a few people in but not many defenses. Like, they can clear defenses that only have small arms in them, but as soon as they started getting focus fired by even 3 rifles can put down an armored car, given 10 seconds to shoot at it. So it's, and considering it takes armats to produce the thing as well, I mean,
it's just not worth it.
It's just not worth
especially when you get to the half track. It's like there's literally no point to build this armored car. Like, some people try to say like it still holds value throughout the whole war, and it's like
no,
you can't say that.
No.
How much does it cost for an armored car compared to a half track? It's like a 50 armat difference.
Yes, something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know who said that, but they don't know very much. But the armored car is it's just not viable at the end of the war. And I don't think the armored car needs to be taken out of the game, by the way, because I don't mind the armored car in certain roles and certain situations, but it's very, very, very niche and specific situations. They're not like the half track that can be used in several different maneuvers. The armored car has a very specific set of maneuvers, like they're very, very good at fighting other zergs of armored cars, but that's about it. As soon as you put them up against anything like a half track, for instance, they're just going to evaporate. Even a squad of 5 infantry that know what they're doing against an armored car can easily take it out. I've taken out armored cars on my own. Granted, the crew wasn't too intelligent, but it's just they're not very versatile. And I think what brings us on to our next point is an absolutely excellent what's the word? A segue into towing. And I know towing has been talked about quite a lot for artillery guns and field machine guns, and
before you
other
get
things
to that,
as well.
I just want to start with the with the fact that
we're not done bashing the armored car yet.
All right, okay.
I'm not trying to bash it, but you guys see the irony of the name, right? Armored, it has armored in its name, but it gets fucking crushed.
More like the paper car, or the plastic car.
I find it funny.
The chain link fence is stronger than the fucking armored car. Like, you can't see rifles and whatnot fucking destroy a fence anymore.
The thing I want to say is, because I have been recording constantly in the past few weeks, is watching over my recordings, and like Dark can tell you, because he generally watched with me most of them, is what I kind of discovered is every time an armored car pops up in the recording, right? It takes about 2 minutes, but not more than 2 minutes for it to get destroyed. So in any basic scenario that we encountered an enemy armored car, it takes about 2 minutes at most for it to be evaporated from the map.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's, just hilarious in my mind. I'm actually thinking of, and I'll probably do that. I'm thinking of doing a compilation of all the moments when we encountered armored car and just like eventually putting a clock on the screen and seeing how long
the high
till
score.
how long till it's gone.
Survive the longest without getting destroyed, and it's just oh, there's an armored car. Like, oh, no, okay, it's gone. Okay, armored car's gone.
But I
I
will
mean,
say, just for the sake of being honest about it, like in skirmishes, for example, like that's oof, like you got armored car. At some point in skirmishes, it's more about who gets armored car first. It's not about the actual map.
yeah, well,
That
there's a reason for that though. I
yeah,
mean,
because it's
like,
the most
I mean,
powerful thing in there.
the,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you can take an armored car to it, like in a skirmishes, it's a totally different kettle of fish to World Conquest. On skirmishes, you obviously have you don't have like as many options to take out the armored car. Like I think you can you get RPGs in skirmish?
I think they recently they redid the tech tree for it, so they've included half tracks, mortars. I think mortars have always been there, but the AT
Yeah, they have.
rifles, HMG. I think they've included HMGs too, but it's like, but these are the things that could still potentially, rip and tear into armored cars, and like even then, it's like, well, you guys included the armored car into here for the kind of the purpose of, they wanted their in skirmishes to be some type of vehicle, and like, that's where also the armored car kind of played in to play. But now it's like, oh, we brought its very bigger, stronger brother, the half track. So then in the armored car, just it's like, okay, there's no point building armored cars no more, even in skirmishes, and it's just like,
I mean, like in skirmishes, armored cars have done well in skirmishes because fights tend to be smaller in skirmishes. Skirmishes tend to take place in battles of skirmishes, funnily enough. So it's not more like huge frontline battles that you see on World Conquest. It's more like squads of 6 fighting each other over like a hill or something like that. So an armored car in that instance might do a lot better at fire support because it's only fighting infantry that don't have things like RPGs and HMGs. If you introduce an RPG or a HMG with sustained fire for more than 5 seconds, the armored car is gone. And I mean, I know that's the risk of the armored car, and having infantry to protect the armored car is a must. If you're with an armored car, if you leave it on your own, you're just going to lose it. But I mean, when I've had squads in the past and I've had the option of taking an armored car, I would much rather have 2 infantry inside the armored car than outside of it. Because if you have a squad of 6, which is generally what I run with, you put 2 people in the armored car, and then you've only got 4 infantry protecting it, and then the gun that you're protecting and bringing to bear is only a storm rifle. So it's powerful, but it's not something that you need to be investing a lot of time into, because it's, at the end of the day, it's just a storm rifle. If you've got armored cars, you're not that far off HMGs. So,
and that goes along with like the whole point of like this whole the aiming update. But like the armored cars, you haven't even fired the gun as soon as you freshly built it. You're aiming and you like let like a little burst of 3 bullets and like not a single one hit. It's like, and as I've gone a lot for the armored car, it is fucking frustrating trying to fucking hit one fucking dude, and it's like this guy's like either standing still or dancing through this sea of fucking bullets. And it's like, well, fuck, now I gotta reload. Or the guy's like, he already, fucked off because there's no point in chasing him, past that first volley. And I don't know if we could just use this as a moment to segue into the topic of the aiming update and how it had some positives, but it also came with a few downsides as well. I feel like sometimes it's a bit hard to be aiming the fucking rifle when it's always set to aim at a certain distance now, instead of you're aiming in default, but in the past you're aiming at the ground, but now it has you aiming dead at least shoulder's length always. But the thing with issue that comes is that no matter what, it's always the same. Like when you're proning, I'm trying to I want to hit this guy that's kind of like he's proning like just the same as me, and I have to literally put the crosshair like dead on him or like past him, but sometimes it just seems like, you know, like I'm just hitting straight ahead, and it just because I'll say this: I suck at infantry. I'm mainly an artillery guy. Frontline combat. It is not my job. I don't belong there. Give me a field artillery gun, howitzer, and I like it any day. But you know, serve me to serve the front lines, and I'm like, sir, I can't fire the guy in front of me. And it's bad all around.
So I get what you're saying with the new aiming update. I always remember the first day that the aiming update came out, and it was a skirmish map, and we rushed a colonial town, and we secured the town. And I remember that they attacked us in a wave, and we put a few of them down. But there was this one guy that was just dancing and doing exactly what the update was trying to prevent, and he was just doing it like it was no problem. You know what I mean? With a regular rifle. And another huge problem that has developed with the update is after playing it for a while now and getting used to the new shooting and things like that, I have to say that it is an improvement. However, it is introduced a bigger problem. Now, shotguns have always been like really powerful, and they have their at nighttime. You know, shotgun is king. We all know that. But what it's done is it's made an already really powerful weapon even more powerful. Because running and gunning with a shotgun is exactly how it's intended to be used, but at the same time, it's like with the update, it's made fighting shotguns an absolute living nightmare. And because they can be mass produced and everyone has one, as soon as it turns from day to night, you know, people, I don't know, the infantry gameplay goes downhill, let's say.
Yeah, it just becomes shotgun city at that point. It's like the range on the shotgun itself needs to be shortened. And like if there's any type of fix, the range needs to be shortened.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of people saying that, you know, take shotguns out of the game and all that, but that isn't the answer, because taking shotguns out of the game would lessen the game, in my opinion. It would lessen, you know, tactics and things like that, because
it's been added to a point where you can't get rid of it.
No, you can't get rid of the shotgun, and I think you should be able to put a bayonet on the end of it, just as a side point.
I mean, I could. The same thing could be said to almost every weapon. You know, it's like why not have the ability to attach a bayonet on it? It's not just because, like, even with the shotgun, it's like, oh, what's the point of bayoneting someone? It's just we just want to fucking stab someone. I mean, you're close enough to blast them with a shotgun. I want to see the shell and just fucking stab them. It's funnier, and you know, it's more enjoyable.
But I think the shotgun, because it's a close combat weapon, needs that bayonet, because plenty of people ask for it. It makes sense, so put it on. I don't want to spend too much time on the bayonet shotgun though, because that's been heavily debated in the community so much.
Of course.
So, just one thing, Avitus, like
sure, yeah.
You already mentioned it, but I actually have a thing recorded. I'll probably put in here just for laughs. With a guy at full sprint, he fires his rifle once, he hits me, then he hides so I cannot hit him back, comes running full sprint back out, and then takes another shot, perfect hit a second time, and I go down. And it's like, where's the lack of accuracy? Like, that's one thing.
It goes with their like for some reason they had like an RNG system that's correlating to the aiming, and it's like I know they tried to say that, you know, with the new update, you know, if you run and gun, you'll miss a lot more, especially with the rifle. And it's like we have incidents of like what Razor's saying. This guy's full on sprinting in circles, hiding, makes a pop and like does not miss every single fucking time. And it's like it's fucking crazy. And like they try, I think they expressed that they didn't really enjoy shadow dancing, even though a good part of the community enjoys it. But it's like nothing kind of just fucks your gameplay up when you're trying to kill someone. This guy's just bobbing left and right, and it's like, well,
I mean, in my eyes, Foxhole is an absolutely great outlet for people that really like tactic, like forming sort of like a grand strategy, but with all of your soldiers being, you know, regular people. So you have to do it on the ground level, and I think that's an absolutely great, and that's why I'm drawn to Foxhole. The overall tactics and the way that you can deploy people and things like an organization, especially in big clans and things like that, and the things that you can achieve by doing huge maneuvers and pushing the boundaries and things like that. That's where I'm at. But the problem is when you get people that are doing things like shadow dancing, it just like there's no counter to it at all. You can't instruct you guys to do anything about it. I mean, if I show up with my 5 guys, say I'll give you an example. There's a cornfield north of Upper Heartlands. Everybody knows it. There's a cornfield there. So 5 colonial infantry on the other side, 5 warden infantry that I'm leading on the other side. I engage them. What I would regularly do, if I see them through my binos, they're coming towards us, I would form my guys into a line formation, which is about 10 meters spread, and they're facing towards the colonials, probably in a crouched or prone position, waiting for them to come. And in that circumstance, 9 times out of 10, we will come out on top. But there's always that one time where those guys are shadow dancers, and they will just, run around in circles, not getting slowed down, and it's only through, luck that people can
I
take
can
the
actually
shots.
give you some advice there, Avitus, and everybody else. By another, try and shoot in front of them. Try and assume where they're gonna.
See,
go,
the thing
whether
is, the
it's-
thing is, Razor, because we've had. I mean, I know that, you know that, but like,
I don't know.
as a squad leader, where you're leading people in that are new to the game and things like that, and
yeah, it's hard.
you're trying to give them the best experience that they can have with the game, so they can fall in love with it and sort of and stick around. When they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you're telling them, and that they get down, and then they're engaged by these people, and they're doing everything right, and they should, but the little details like shoot in front of the shadow dancer doesn't really come up
Yeah.
when you're in the middle of combat. You know what I mean? It's not something that you can just. I mean, you can quickly say if you have the time, but 9 times out of 10, that's
The damage has already
it.
been done.
Yeah, the
And
damage has already been done.
Because we're already at the subject of shadow dancing, I must bring up the pistol accuracy in this update. Like, I know a lot of shadow dancers literally are now using revolvers because like they don't miss. It's like like they don't miss. Doesn't matter what you do with them, they don't miss. They're like that lethal. And further than that, like let's say revolvers, okay, like it's a precise weapon. I don't think you should be able to shoot that accurate while moving, even with a revolver. But what is more absurd to me is the pistol. Like the pistol was introduced like a weapon that you get free of charge, just so you have something to defend yourself with, right? But now
I mean,
I have 1v1s with shotgunners with a pistol so many times. You can ask Dark. I even have footage of it. It's like they don't have time to react, and you don't miss with the pistol. Like he fires once, you put 3 bullets in him, he's dead. You understand what I'm saying?
I mean, I have to admit, I've been loving the updated pistols because when tanks are released, normally I'm commanding a tank, so I'm in the top of a tank. The sidearm is just like now with the new shooting system. The sidearms, I can take an RPG guy out at like 40 meters with
Like before
with a magnum.
I get what you mean, but
yeah.
you would be like, well, that's the thing with the Magnum, not like the update for the revolver. It's kind of fine. It's because I enjoy it too. I enjoy it with the revolver. It pretty much became like a mini rifle now, but it replaced the issue of shadow dancing with like now you can shadow dance with this more accurate weapon.
One more thing, Avitus. I would say you being the commander of a tank, right? You're in a, let's say, stable position, right? You're in a cockpit. Let's call it a cockpit, if I can do that. So it makes sense your accuracy is good, right? Because you're not moving, you're not running, you're just sitting up there, aiming with your pistol, right?
That's
that
true.
makes sense
That's
to
true.
me. But when
with the
you
standard
sprint full speed, but you still somehow manage to land every shot with your pistol. It's like, is it
Yeah.
John Wick in town, or you know?
And then
Yeah.
the basic sidearm, like the normal issue one, is just like you're not supposed to use this as a main combat weapon. It's like Ray just said, this is just something so you can at least defend yourself, you know. But it's like, you know, like when someone says who would win in a fucking battle, a rifleman or a fucking pistol dude, and like, you know, you'd be shocked to see the results, you know. And just the guy with the rifle is like using the weapon as intended. He would be proning, aiming at the guy with the pistol. Now it comes into play who sees first. You know, that's always an issue. But you know, like if the pistol guy knows what he's doing, like a lot of the hardcore vet players, they know how to deal with a good core of the population of Foxhole, and they can shadow dance their way and kill that rifleman. And
That's
it's
it.
just
Like rifle is one thing, you know, because at least the rifle has the range advantage, so you might be able to hit him once and then he's dead. But shotguns need to come close to you, and we already talked about shotguns being kind of, you know, the weapon right now. I saw so many shotguns lose to pistols, you know, like.
Yeah. I mean, something I want to briefly talk about. I know you mentioned it before, but the range of shotguns. Like, if there's any like I'd like to reiterate that if there's any fix for shotguns, it's the range, because the range at the moment is ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. Like they won't put you down in one hit. Granted, they won't put you down in one hit, but they can still hit you from, I don't know, 20 meters away with a shotgun. And even though it's the spread, it's the arc is bigger. So even though they're doing less damage, they hit like
it still hits and slows you down.
Still hits, slows you down, and then they can just run up to you and finish you off, sort of thing. And I think that takes the advantage away from rifles, because the rifles need that gap in order to do something against and have an advantage against the shotgun guy. But I'm not talking about like urban combat where the shotgun should have the advantage over a rifle. At the end of the day, if you're killed inside a town by a shotgun guy coming out of a side street, then that's because that guy chose a better weapon for you for that style of combat. At the end of, like, that's where the shotgun should come into play, and it should be the weapon of choice. But at the moment, shotguns are engaging people in open fields and coming out on top because you know, they
got the distance and they got the spread, and that goes down to like it's the game's camera. And like, just think about it, when you shoot with the shotgun, you got a good, like, I would probably be generous and say like about 25, no, not even, let's just say like 20% of a cone of your screen, which is pretty much you're gonna hit someone in that cone. And basically any other weapon fires once with only like a 1% line that they go every time they shoot, you know. And this shotgun gets this 20% AoE cone. That's always going to be, you shoot that one side, someone will get fucking hit, and you can't do nothing about it. Just, you know, you panic and try to shoot them, and most of the time, you know, unfortunately, you will be dead. And that's just the sad, unfortunate reality of like how the game's camera kind of like it's one of those things. It's a good meta because, as I said, you're getting a lot of value for what that weapon is. It shoots and it hits everyone in this AoE area, and it does a lot more than what any other rifle could.
Guys,
Yeah,
I'm gonna propose we talk about towing, because I know Avid just kind of mentioned it at some point, and I know you all care deeply about it, and we might want to just close it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like we've been going for a while.
Fuck shotguns.
Yeah.
Let's just go on to let's go on to towing.
So towing. There's been a huge Dark, I'm sure, is a huge advocate of this. You lose your arty gun. Now, when you're part of a huge assault that has been organised by multiple clans, or even just your own clan if it's big enough, the artillery gun is absolutely integral to especially late game. Like, the artillery gun is the key to the entire assault. If the artillery gun gets taken out, the entire assault grinds to a halt, unless you've got like overwhelming tanks or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, the artillery gun is integral to the entire attack.
Entire push. And like,
yeah,
you really got to make sure you have spares. And like, even just getting the spares is a fucking pain in the ass because you
Yeah.
have to, because even though you have to deal with traveling between the borders, and then from traveling to the borders getting to the position you want, and most of the time you're gonna have to be pushing off fucking road, and it's not to including that recently there's been like some, like the artillery gun has been feeling very fucking buggy, like you just disappear. Your pusher can't read the ASM, and like the gunner can't see what distance, and it's like the gun's entirely, it feels really fucky recently.
I mean, the reason that I want to talk about this is it isn't more for 82DK, because there's a reasoning behind that. We have the manpower to get spares up to the front line. Any colonial listening to this, we have, spares on hand for every attack that we perform. So if the colonials listen to this and thinking that if you take out the 82DK's field arty, they're going to stop our entire assault, they're completely wrong. But what I'm talking about is smaller clans and smaller groups of people. If they want an artillery gun on the front line, it's
They can't
a
afford
huge.
to
No, they can't. I mean, and who wants to log onto a game and spend
push the fucking spend like 20 minutes pushing?
Yeah, push an artillery gun up from the back lines. It's just not feasible. So I think that towing badly needs to come in, or something to do with towing. And obviously, especially a vehicle's going to have to be released for that. But going back to what I was saying about armored cars and their very, very niche and very specific roles that they have in the game, that aren't really being fulfilled very well by the vehicle.
Now,
I think
one thing that goes like, how often do you see an FMG? Like, how often do you ever get to see it actually deployed?
I've got a better question for you. When do you ever see an FMG getting used effectively?
Oh, that's an entirely different topic all of its own,
Let's keep it.
But let's just go to like the FMG is a really good fucking weapon when used by good people that know how and what they're doing. But like the simple fact you have to slog this, and then keep in mind the FMG has a slow turning radius compared to the field artillery due to its little bicycle fucking wheels. But it turns horribly, and like it's probably has equally the same speed on and off road as the field artillery, and like pushing it to point A to point B to point C is fucking awful. It is fucking awful, and it's like that's why we don't get to see it a lot, and it's a damn shame. It takes real hard dedication for the people to actually build it and take it to the front, and sometimes some people just don't have time for that.
I think it's because it's so easily countered, because by the time you roll an FMGs onto the field, the enemies had grenade launchers for at least a few hours. So
yeah, that's true.
Or even frags. You know what I mean? As soon as you put frags up against a field machine gun, it loses its effectiveness dramatically, and that means that like because they're so easy to lose entirely. I've seen it many times where people have been fragged on field machine guns, and we've managed to capture them, or they've captured them off us. But they don't tend to be used to their full effectiveness because they're used so little by people in the game. So I think that towing would massively improve people's tactics with the FMG in game, because if people are using it more, then people get to develop better strategies.
They get to know how to use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
so if
I was just gonna go with something like it's like I like to say, unless the person knows what they're doing with the grenade, or unless they're using a frag launcher, like it's real easy. You just tell whoever's gunning for you to not, no matter what, do not get off the fucking gun, because they shoot a grenade at me, I'm just pulling it away. Simple as that. The grenade is now in front of the gun. No damage is done. There might be some fragmentation damage on the gun itself, but everything's a-okay. But the main issue is that like as soon as a frag gets in between, the gunner fucking freaks out, and he's like, "Fuck you, dude! I'm getting out." And it's like, I can't fucking push the gun now. Now I'm dead. Well,
yeah.
And it's too late. It's already at that point. It's already too late for me. I always tell them.
I mean, sometimes I prefer people actually using the grenade launcher when I'm against them in a field machine gun, because with the grenade launcher, it actually, they can't cook it, because when people are throwing grenades at you, I've noticed a lot more recently that people have learned to cook grenades, and it's an absolute fucking nightmare. Like if like there's literally nothing you can do, because by the time the grenade lands, it's gone off.
Yep.
And you literally can't do anything about it. And that's a tip that I would give anybody using frag grenades.
Learn to cook.
Learn to cook, because if you learn to cook, you will kill every
The
single
women
time you
love
throw
it.
one. The women
They
love
need
it.
it.
Yeah.
A woman loves a man that can cook their grenade. Remember that. And it's like it hurts so bad. My many few times being in the infantry, and it's just like seeing a whole squad just like being evaporated. Given they need to know their spacing, but like sometimes you can't get that spacing when a grenade's been cooked, and like, well, there goes my squad. they're all lying screaming, and the medic is down with them.
So
And I've noticed as well. Just another quick tip on frag grenades. If you're a medic, if you see someone go down to a frag grenade as a medic, let them die, please. For the love of Christ, they are already dead.
Valuable. Your life is more valuable than theirs.
Yeah, because what you're going to do is you're going to go over them, you're going to start healing them, and then the guy's going to throw in another grenade, and you're both going to die, and then the team loses a medic. So make sure that another frag grenade isn't coming your way before you're healing people. Right, going back onto towing very, very briefly, the armored car I think would be an absolutely excellent fit for towing if they can implement it properly. Now we all know that Foxhole is buggy and things like that when it comes to vehicle physics and stuff like that, and I think towing we're very, very I don't know, if they find a way to put towing in bug free, then I'll be very, very surprised.
As long as it's not super buggy, hell, I don't even care if it looks janky. As long as it doesn't bug and spaz out or make you like lose the thing that you're towing. Like, I don't care if it looks like like no matter what, it's always on the back of the damn vehicle. I don't care about that. As long as I'm able to carry and take this vehicle, take my field artillery or FMG and just drive it, so it would just mean the world to me. It's just like
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, it makes things faster and easier and more enjoyable. Like, there's the logi that's boring, and then there's pushing the fucking gun that's also equally as boring.
I think towing for me is not. It's like it's not as big of an issue. Like I don't think there's obviously things that I would like to see worked on far before towing. But
and I agree with you.
In the same breath, the armored car has absolutely next to no purpose in game for true for what it's intended for. It has absolutely no purpose at all, because it doesn't protect logi. It can't protect logi. It slows the efficiency of logi down to like almost a grinding halt. So it's got no purpose, and I think the armored car needs a purpose. And I think as a towing vehicle, especially for things like field artillery guns, because it can double. Once it's towed the artillery gun, the crew can then protect the artillery gun from infantry flankers and things like that. So I think the armored car would be used a hell of a lot more, especially in late game and things like that, if it had that ability to tow field machine guns and stuff like that. And it would open up a huge potential for the armored car. Anything else
on this? Like, first of all, I just want to use my favorite argument on this, like, because I remember even in the first reiteration of artillery, like back in the fucking medieval wars and shit, they still had horses pulling it, right? You wouldn't have two people just pushing it around constantly.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's. See, the thing is, like, I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, they did this in World War One."
Yeah, I know, because we're not necessarily in the same.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a game, and
I'm just putting in front the argument that it's just a little, unrealistic.
Mankind has always found a way to make things easier and better.
It's unrealistic to think like they thought about it and they were like to the conclusion, well, we have tanks, we have all these vehicles, but the best way to fucking handle artillery guns is to push them. Like there's no other way around it. It's just
The artillery guys are the strongest of the whole army. Like what can we say? Like we're the big he-men of the whole empire. You know. It's
and
just
talking about, because you guys were talking about setting it up without bugs and such, because like I was thinking about it, how do you do it? Because like people would try and abuse it somehow, like move the
Try to-
gun
they'll
fast.
snag the gun away.
Yeah, just basically fire, move it, or the
Well, that goes with the little segue of artillery in Foxhole. Nowhere near behaves anything close to anything remotely related to artillery. The only thing is that it fires far, and like that's like sure it fires far, and that's artillery.
I was just
It's more accurate to a giant sniper rifle than anything. That's what I think the field artillery is, a giant sniper rifle.
in my mind, like the only thing you would really need is like having a timer, not a timer, or a set amount of time needed for you to actually do the towing. So when you couple it to an armored car, for example, because Abito suggested that, it would take like, I don't know, 3 seconds or something like that. And then when you put it, when you try to move it, it would take another 3 seconds to
Decouple.
to latch it.
Decouple,
Yeah,
yeah.
decouple and couple it, exactly. So you can't just fire one shell, instantly couple it, move it like 20 meters, fire another shell. You know what I mean? You can't use that kind of a strategy to evade.
I mean,
So that goes with like they would need to remodel, and I can give you the answer right here and now. Is like look at the current like model of the field artillery, and you see how it has like a handle where to push, and that little brace in the back where it keeps it keeping it from falling fully back. That needs to be replaced with a pair of think of the Y. Think of the Pack 40. Simple as that. It needs to be able to, when you're moving it, you pick it up, you close the legs, and you push it. When you set it up, you put it down and you spread the legs apart as like an actual field gun would behave. That
Yeah.
setup time would be you can't move the gun unless the legs are closed.
That sounds excellent to me. That's an excellent suggestion in my mind.
And I think like I don't. If they can't implement towing, they're going to have to introduce something like a specialist, like flatbed truck or something like that. They can load like I don't know.
Load equipment in.
Yeah, like load a field artillery gun, load an FMG onto like a flatbed truck that they can then ship to the front line, because the times between getting them to the front line, not for us, not for 82DK, because we can get things to the front line, we have the manpower to do it. If we want five field artillery guns at the front line, we just make them at the port base, and then we listen to music with 10 guys pushing them to the front while having a bit of banter. It's not a big issue for us, but the smaller clans, random people that just want to do it and get into it for fun, then it's an absolute living nightmare, and they're going to have to do something about it. I wouldn't like them, there's we could talk forever about other options like motorized sort of like artillery and things like that, which I think would be an absolutely brilliant addition later in the game. But something needs to be done about towable guns. I know you mentioned the Pack 40 there, and I have to mention it, dude, because you said the Pack 40. The Pack 40 is something that needs Foxhole needs badly.
Oh, of course,
like
of course.
a front shooting anti-tank gun that's really powerful. Yeah, we need that badly, and they wouldn't need to necessarily introduce an entirely different gun for that. They could just make it so the field artillery has two different settings, where again it maybe takes a few seconds to deploy the artillery gun as a Pack 40. Maybe it takes like quite a bit of time. Maybe it takes a minute to change the firing mode of the artillery from a front-facing sort of like tank sort of gun, where you can where it aims and shoots like the tank, to like an artillery gun like we know it today. So like the something like the Pack 40 is badly needed in Foxhole, and I think it would go a hell of a long way to helping people against massive armor pushes and stuff like that.
I agree as well.
I'm probably going to swallow my words because
Probably gonna end up hating it as a tank commander.
yeah, I'm gonna probably hate it, but it's something that we need
I mean,
badly.
that goes with like tanks don't have any real threats except for like that random with an RPG. And it's like there's nothing more, or the field artillery, of course, and like it shoots one, and you're like, okay, we gotta back out or gotta make sure we keep moving.
I mean,
And
something that I've noticed, especially at the end of the last war, with tanks, it's like there's that many infantry. There's so many people that take RPGs now. It's absolutely insane. Like, we were coming up against, like, I don't know, say we were coming up against 20 colonials. Like, probably 8 of them had RPGs. It's like absolutely insane because
it's one thing I can admire, and I really wish that we could start getting this integrated with ourselves. Is like I'm seeing like there's colonial infantry like shooting on infantry with their rifles, and as soon as the tank comes in, they just take a second, and suddenly they have an RPG like ready. And that comes down with, I think Foxhole needs something more of a Panzerfaust, where you have this RPG that's lightweight, or not lightweight, but like it's a one shot use, and it doesn't stack like the RPG as well. But this is some tactics that the colonials do use, as they have they have an RPG that's loaded, and that's it, and like they just have it in their backpack just in case. And that's something to me, it's like that's really fucking good in late game, because now one shell. It does something. It's better to hit one shell with an RPG on a tank, and just that one shell alone makes.
As a tank commander, I can tell you now that if a tank gets hit by an RPG, it doesn't matter if it gets hit in the front or the rear or the sides. It doesn't matter if a tank gets hit by an RPG, it will instantly start reversing. It doesn't matter if if the crews if they don't start reversing, they're dead. So they need to start reversing. So even one RPG hit on a tank is enough to take it off the front line and get repaired, because they 99 times out of 100, like these tank commanders will always pull RPGs back, always pull tanks back from RPGs. In the same breath, if you are an infantryman, for the love of God, get in front of the tanks, guys. Get in front of the tanks as infantry, because that is your chief role as infantry late game. Be a screen for the tanks. If you're in front of the tanks can shoot over you. They're not going to hit you unless they're low IQ, but they can shoot over you very, very easily, or shoot between you very, very easily. So you need to be in front of the tanks, not hiding behind them, which is not like all the time I see infantry hiding behind tanks. You need to be in front of the tanks, guys, in front of them. Because if you're in front of them, then the infantry can't run up and rush them with HE grenades. RPGs have a harder time, getting through the massive infantry. They also have a harder time getting the shot lined up because you're shooting at them and things like that. So if you see tanks and you're an infantryman, do not play behind them. Okay.
I think this is a good point to end it here. I think we've been discussing for a very long time.
Yep.
Just thank you. This is our first of hopefully many more episodes, and I had a good time. I hope you guys as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it was good to get a lot off my chest.
A lot of topics as well for the first episode, so to call it.
Yeah, well, if you made it to the end, guys, and you weren't completely bored by my voice, then I'm glad that you stuck around, and we'll have another episode out for you in the future.
Remember, cook your grenades. Women love it.
remember, don't stay in your foxholes. Get out of them and attack, cowards.
Even better. Okay.
All right.
See you next time, guys.
See ya.
Bye.